Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. Today, we're going to be looking at a passage from the Book of Mormon.
Okay.
And specifically from the Book of Moroni, chapter 1.
All right.
This is really a personal account from a man named Moroni, who was writing at a time of some pretty intense conflict and persecution.
Right.
And what I think makes this even more interesting is that he's writing this for a future audience that he may never even meet.
I see.
And that audience is his Lamanite brethren.
Interesting. Well, yeah, you definitely get a sense of that kind of desperate situation that he's in.
Right.
Like right away in verse 2, he mentions that the Lamanites are executing anyone who says that they're a Nephite and follows Christ.
So like just believing in Christ at this time was putting him in real danger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit more about like the historical context here?
Sure.
What was going on between the Nephites and the Lamanites that made things so volatile?
Yeah, so the Nephites and the Lamanites have this long and complicated history.
Yeah.
Full of conflict, and religion was really like central to this conflict.
Mm-hmm.
The Nephites were descendants of a man named Nephi.
Okay.
And they believed in Christ. They had prophets and kind of a structured religious system.
Yeah.
But the Lamanites, on the other hand, had like largely rejected that whole belief system and developed their own cultural and religious practices.
I see.
And so, over generations, this just created animosity and mistrust between these two groups, and it often led to violence.
So Moroni's basically caught in the crossfire of this long-standing feud.
Yeah, you could say that.
But despite that threat to his life, he refuses to deny Christ.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
Well, he says in verse 3, "And I, Moroni, will not deny the Christ, wherefore I wander whithersoever I can for the safety of mine own life."
Right.
I mean, it shows incredible faith.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, you have to remember, like, this wasn't just some philosophical difference for the Nephites.
Right.
Their faith was woven into their identity, their values, their entire way of life.
Right.
So for Moroni, denying Christ would be like rejecting who he was at his core.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Oh, no.
It makes his dedication even more profound. But it also makes you wonder, what was he trying to achieve by writing all this down?
Right.
He knew that the Lamanites were his enemies, so why even bother trying to reach them?
Well, it's a huge testament to hope and forgiveness,
Okay.
He wasn't trying to, like, convert them or argue points of doctrine. In verse 4, he writes, "Wherefore I write a few more things contrary to that which I had supposed not to have written anymore, but I write a few more things that perhaps they may be of worth unto my brethren the Lamanites in some future day, according to the will of the Lord."
Wow.
So you see, he was really preserving his people's history, their beliefs, their experiences for future generations.
Yeah.
And holding on to this belief that, one day, maybe generations later, it might make a difference.
It's such a powerful concept, like this idea of leaving a message for the future that you might never see.
Right. It reminds me like the Old Testament prophets,
Yeah.
writing down revelations and prophecies and trusting that they would eventually be understood and fulfilled. Exactly. And it just speaks to this human need to connect across time, share our stories and pass on our values.
Right.
Moroni, even after all the suffering he witnessed, still believed that words could transcend even the most bitter divides. He saw his writing as an act of faith, a way to participate in God's plan, even though he couldn't see what the outcome was going to be.
It's just a powerful reminder that even in the darkest times, there's always hope.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, thank you all for joining us today on this look at Moroni's words. And we want to leave you with this thought. What message would you leave behind for future generations?
That's a great question.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on more discussions like this.
Definitely.
Until next time.